should be live in just about 30 seconds.
Great. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Ricky Shabazz. I have the honor and privilege of being the president of San Diego City College. I don't know that I'll ever get used to having our college council meetings this way,
you should be
particularly
live
because we're broadcasting. Okay, I think we should be live now. I'm getting the head nod. Great. Some people are watching it live on YouTube while they're in the magical squares called Zoom. Hello, everyone. I don't think I'll ever get used to having these meetings this way, but it's so good to see you all virtually. For those of you who are new to College Council, my name is Ricky Shabazz. I have the honor and privilege of being the president of San Diego City College, and San Diego City College has as the highest level of governance College Council, which is comprised of representatives of the various constituency groups on campus. And we will do a roll call. Let me share the agenda. And as I introduce you, if you would unmute yourself and acknowledge your presence. For those of you who are watching live via YouTube, you should know that you can request to either present to College Council or present an agenda item to College Council. You simply would need to reach out to your representative on College Council, and I'll introduce them as part of our roll call. Paul Alexander, President of Academic Senate.
He had a conflict today.
Not a problem. Tilly Chavez, Vice President of Instruction.
Present.
Aaron Deddy, Administrative Representative.
Present.
Robbie Ewell, Chair of Institutional Technology.
Present.
Oh, thank you, Robbie. Caesar, Public Information Officer.
Present.
Jocelyn Hill, Supervisory Representative.
Present.
Nadia, the President and Chair of Chairs of Cabinet, or Chairs of Chairs as we know it.
Present.
Marco, who is the ASG Senator, filling in for Destiny, our ASG President. Dr. Susan Murray, Dean of Institutional Effectiveness, Chair of NPROC.
Present.
Masa, President-elect Academic Senate.
Present.
John Parker, Vice President of Administrative Services.
Present.
Sean Ryan, filling in for Awana, Vice President of Classified Senate.
I am present.
Yeah, and I should have done a better job. Sean is the Vice President of the Classified Senate, filling in for the President, Awana Payne, who is the President of the Classified Senate. Denise Wisenhunt, Vice President of Student Services, and she's reading my mind of what I really want to say right now. Denise.
I'm sorry, just coming in. I see Marco Orlarte is here, and he is an ASG Senator for our ASG President.
Yes, Marco. I got to see Marco's face. Thank you, Marco, for being here. We need to celebrate you because I've been asking weekly, where are our students in College Council? Do I see Marco's face? Where I need to see. Let me stop sharing the agenda so I can see Marco. Marco, what's going on, bruh?
How you doing?
Thank you for being here, man. We want to give our students a round of applause. You are the reason why we do this. And Denise was reading my mind. And so thank you, Denise. You put a smile on my face, Marco. We are so glad.
Marco, if I could tell you how happy I am to see you, you have no idea, man. Good looking out.
You know, because Marco, our students are so important to the discussions that take place at College Council and other committees. And when I don't see the representatives there, I bug the heck out of Denise, because that's just how important it is to make sure our students are represented at the highest level of governance at our college. So you've got a huge responsibility. You are representing, Marco, nearly 18,000 San Diego City students. So welcome to College Council, and to everyone who is who is watching via YouTube, Marco, I'll explain very quickly that College Council is the highest level of governance, and any student who wants to bring up something to College Council should feel free to reach out to Marco, our Destiny, or the student government. Anyone who is here with us on this Zoom meeting, and particularly those who are representing constituency groups, can bring forth an agenda item or presentation request. You do so by reaching out to your representatives and or my office, and we would be glad to discuss something. So Marco, we are so glad to have you here. Welcome to College
Thank you
Council.
for having me.
Yeah,
And
let me
I have to
get back
apologize on behalf of ASG for not having somebody represent ASG and students before. I also am the same opinion that it's fundamental, it's necessary. I mean, our whole institution is based on students, and to not have a student representative is kind of like defeats the purpose.
Yes,
so it's
and Marco,
my pleasure.
Marco, it is, the pleasure is all ours, and I appreciate the apology, but let me also say that it's not necessary, because we realize that the students that we serve have responsibilities. Many of you are working 2 or 3 jobs. We get it. And so really, I'm just excited that you were able to come. No fault, no opinion. And we also get that it's traditional that students typically don't attend over the summer, but during this pandemic, we've been making some very serious, important decisions. And I'm just happy that you're here. So welcome. We'd like to begin. Is there anyone else that has joined that I didn't get a chance to introduce? And hearing none, I'd like to take a motion to approve the meeting notes from September 1st, because I want to thank Aaron from my office for doing the notes. You should have received them electronically. If somebody would like to make a motion to approve the meeting notes from September 1st. Denise is
No motion.
Okay. And if we could, I mean, using that raise hand feature is great, but when I'm sharing the agenda, I really can't see it. So I hear a first by Aaron. Denise, I saw your hand. Would you like to unmute and make a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion about the meeting notes from September the 1st? Okay, all in favor indicate so by saying aye.
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 Would
Aye.
anyone like to either abstain or vote against approving the meeting notes from September 1st? Hearing that motion carries. I always love to bring good news, and there are so many amazing things that we could be and should be celebrating that are going on amongst our faculty, our classified professionals, our supervisors, our deans, our chairs, our students. We are seeing innovation at the highest level. We're seeing support at the highest level. And this is carried out via the Enrollment Management Committee, work with via Luke in outreach, our supervisor in outreach, Genevieve, one of our great deans, the marketing team. Can't say enough about Caesar, Victor, Kim. I mean, it's been an entire team effort, and I'm happy to report that we actually have 1,000+ more students this fall than we did last fall. And why is that important? Well, you can look at our sister colleges and see that we're up nearly 8% over last year compared to our sister colleges. But if you look out through the state, many colleges are experiencing double-digit decline in enrollment. So that's a testament to our college, our vice presidents, our deans, everyone, our chairs, the outreach team, our frontline folks who are helping students through this. It's been organic. There have been some challenges, but City College is still at the forefront of students wanting to continue their education. So I wanted to just give some positive news that even during a period where we may be reducing sections because of the budget, the demand for City College is still there. So kudos to everyone. Are there any questions about that data point or enrollment? Just wanted to give some good news. amongst all of the challenges we're dealing with. So proud of our team and the work that we're doing in the community, on campus, and virtually. Questions or additional comments? Tilly, anything you'd like to say?
I just really like to say thank you to everyone for all their hard work, trying to meet the students' needs. And people have done some great work. And I know right now is a tough time. We're feeling pretty slim with the amount of FTEF that we're receiving. So we're like on a major diet. And this time we have to stick to it. So thank you, and great work that they do. I'm always so impressed with this team.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Tilly. Denise, anything from Student Services?
No, I just want to say that our team has been killing this past few weeks. Has been tough. Students now coming back, they've done a phenomenal job, despite some difficult communication challenges as we are now COVID, but there's really some really great innovative practices that are happening. So just really proud of my team.
Great, and certainly Dr. Parker, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that many of the folks in your area have been on campus from the beginning. Any thoughts about enrollment and the role that you all play?
Oh, it's a shout out to my team, as you mentioned, Dr. Shabazz, as well as student accounts and helping students clear their accounts and their financial aid.
Great. Any other thoughts from any of the other members of College Council? Certainly, Nadia, we are appreciative of the chairs. They've been doing tremendous work to schedule classes. I know it's tough, and I just please extend my appreciation to all of the chairs for the work that you all are doing. Yeah. Aaron, any comments in terms of the administrative team, or certainly Sean in terms of classified professionals, and Jocelyn, any other thoughts?
It's just a team effort, and it starts at the bottom and goes all the way up, and it's just great.
Hi, this is Jocelyn. I want to piggyback on what Aaron just said. Yes, City College, you rock. I'm so proud and honored to be a part of City's College family. Everyone does an amazing job, and thank you for the good work.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that we're here to support, and we're here as classified supporting each other too. So yeah, it's been great.
Great. Any other thoughts before we move on? Hearing none, we came to College Council, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago to talk about celebrating our great chancellor as she has announced her retirement. And we have been toying with a couple of different things, trying to get ahead of and prepared for our October 8th board meeting. And I've been known for being ambitious, and I want to thank our vice presidents, both directly and indirectly. They keep me grounded in reality. And the reality is that we wanted to have a mural for our great chancellor ahead of the October 8th board meeting, but it just wasn't feasible. And we didn't want to drive the artists crazy. I do want to thank everyone who's participating in the committee, right? So this is an exercise to pilot our camp art mural process. And so there is a committee comprised of all of our constituency groups, led by Dr. Parker, because it's a facilities matter. And what we've decided to do is to push the mural discussion presentation back to commencement in terms of the unveiling, to give the artists and the committee a little bit more time to do some work. So I want to thank both Denise and Dr. Parker for that recommendation, which I absolutely agree. In the meantime, what we have decided to do is, Denise, maybe you can talk on it, but we know that our chancellor appeared in an Ebony magazine back in meaning I can't tell you when. And so I want to thank Kim and Caesar, because we redesigned a cover of an Ebony magazine with a current, more appropriate picture of a graceful picture of our chancellor that we plan to present to her in a frame. Denise, you want to provide an update to to the group on the work that you're doing in that area?
Oh, no, well, thank you for the opportunity, but I mean, you pretty much said it all, that we're just trying to do something kind of special and different, reminiscent of, different spaces in her life. So we are creating, under the leadership of your fabulous public information officer and Kim LaRue, a memorable frame with some special words of thanks for her commitment to this district for so many years, and being the first African-American and the first woman to be in that role is pretty monumental and aligns with our social justice views and value set.
Great. So what that's how we'll move forward. Denise is leading the effort with Kim and Caesar to get that framed ebony mock-up of an ebony magazine to the chancellor ahead of our, so don't tell her anybody, ahead of our.
And I would be remiss not to thank Roxanne, because she's done a lot of work on that as well.
Yes. Roxanne is all in between, on top of leading some of these efforts. And speaking of leading the efforts, it was Roxanne that reached out and did the research on a muralist from Chicano Park to update our existing mural above the health center in the A building, and then to do a redention of a mural for the chancellor. And I saw the mock-up, but I wanted to give the folks more time. And so what I would like to do is formally go on record of having someone make a motion, should you desire to do so, for further discussion and approval, to dedicate the A building patio as the Dr. M. Carroll Plaza. Now, the group working on this may come back, and it may be semantics, whether they want to call it the plaza, the patio, or whatnot. But what I would like to get a formal vote on is to dedicate, should this committee be interested in doing so, the A building patio in the memory of our great chancellor, as Denise indicated, the first woman, the first Black person, the longest standing chancellor in the history of the San Diego Community College District, to coincide with a mural and proper signage of the chancellor on the A building. Is there anyone who would like to make a motion for us to do that as a college?
This is Jocelyn Hill. I motion that we move forward.
Thank you. And I'm going to just stop the share here so we can see one another. We've got a first by Jocelyn. Would someone like to second that motion?
This is Sean. I second.
Thank you, Jocelyn and Sean. Discussion. So we presented, even in the prior meetings, this is kind of a second meeting discussion about this. We presented the mural process to the entire campus. So anyone who's interested in a mural can follow the process. The process, as it outlines, says that we have a subcommittee task force of this committee that will make a recommendation. So Dr. Parker is leading that. We also assigned Jeannie Tyler, one of our great deans, to oversee that after this process. So anyone who's interested, I am pro murals, I'm pro art, I'm pro putting some life on some of these blank walls. And this will be a first, and I believe worthy attempt of that. Any questions, any discussions before we bring this to a vote? So the way we matter of fact, Dr. Parker and Denise, and probably Dr. Parker is more appropriate. And again, this is an effort initially led by Roxanne. Roxanne is on the committee. Dr. Parker, you want to provide an update and kind of talk about what this looks like? Because I've asked Dr. Parker to give the artist a little bit more time and the committee a little bit more time to grapple with what the mural is going to look like. Dr. Parker, you want to talk about the timeline and the process?
Certainly. Right now, we've actually fielded comments for the second draft. So we've received the second draft from the artist, and we will be fielding comments again for the third iteration with feedback from the committee. So it's shaping up pretty well right now. The artist started with a pretty much a blank canvas, so to speak. And so we're helping inform his opinion and his rendering to us. So we're impressed thus far. And there'll be several iterations before it is finalized, as you mentioned, Dr. Shabazz, for the commencement. Yeah.
And Dr. Parker, do you mind, Dr. Parker, sharing who's on that committee?
I do not mind if you give me a moment to.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't give you the heads up on that. It's only your 4 week. This is your test on remembering people's names. This is going to be part of your evaluation going forward.
There are some days I leave and I don't know my name.
I know what that feeling's like.
I'll have that one moment.
I know we've got, while you're doing that, I know Denise,
Yeah. Denise is on there. Roxanne is on there.
Okay.
Tilly. We have Dina Prater, Caesar's on there, Anna Delgado, Lydia Baddick, Marciano Perez, Virginia Jackson, Terry Hughes Ulrich. As a guest, she's a guest.
And then Josh.
Yes, and I believe Marciano's a guest as well, because you and Denise are the administrative representatives. So the way
Correct.
the policy or process reads is that there's 2 people from each of the constituency groups. What I would ask Dr. Parker, go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry, Rick, I missed the 2 students, Josh Pockgeider and Destiny Munoz as well.
Great. And so, Dr. Parker, what I would ask you to do, since we pushed this back until a December College Council meeting, once you all come with a final version that the committee is recommending, I would ask that you take that around to the Academic Senate, take it to the Classified Senate, so that you can get some feedback. Now, folks, let me say this. Anybody who's an artist knows that you got to be careful with artists telling them what you want it to look like. And so we've got to give this person some freedom to exercise their expertise. So them going around is more informational, because the final decision is actually made here. So any other discussion before I bring this to a vote, and I want to clarify the vote, is that we want to implement, and Dr. Parker, I'm gonna ask you to mute because I think I hear the construction from the Child Development Center behind you. We're voting to well, in this case, we're not renaming, to name the A Building Plaza after our chancellor, and to place a mural on the A Building, which is adjacent to the walkway between admission and records and where the vice president's offices are. There's a blank building, right? A blank space there that the mural will be on. And what I'll ask Dr. Parker is to bring a picture of what that is next College Council, just so people can see a visual of where the mural will be placed. Any further discussion?
No discussion, but may I ask Dr. Parker, when you present to Classified Senate, that SPA is also included in that presentation?
Very well.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jocelyn, if you want to invite Dr. Parker to a supervisory or SPA meeting to go over that or present it, we would be happy to do that as well. Either way.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
If there is no further discussion, we'll bring this matter to a vote. All in favor of the college naming the A Building patio and putting a corresponding mural of the chancellor on the A Building, indicate so by saying aye.
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 Is there anyone who would either like to abstain or vote in opposition for this recommendation? Great, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Parker, we look forward to an update on the work. And thank you, Roxanne, for finding the muralist and putting all of this in order. Let me also, for the record, say that this matter is being funded with external funding, not from the college. Well, not from the general fund of the college, shall I say. Let me bring up back up the College Council agenda. Next, we have an update from Institutional Technology and Robbie Ewell. So I believe, Robbie, you have a presentation, so I should stop sharing. Robbie? Did we lose Robbie? You're muted, Robbie.
Okay, and Ricky, if you could stop sharing, I'll try to bring one up. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk briefly about technology evaluation and adoption. As you know, our landscape, our world has changed in the last few months. But to be very frank, we've had some processes in place and some things are changing. So I'm going to try to bring up my screen. Bear with me for a second. I can share screen. Okay, can you see this document?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have to have a little bit of context, and that is that all of our technology doesn't come from one place. One should note, and we probably all know at this point, that we've learned on the hard way that we have a number of state brokered resources that come to us, at least as opportunities. That would be the California Virtual Campus Online Education Initiative, sometimes providing one-time augmentation of resources that we can buy at a discount, that we may have access to vendors we did not know about. But the bottom line with that is that it requires a campus level evaluation because the state really does not provide that for us. So our responsibilities that I'll get to in a second remain in play for those. And of course, we operate within a district, and we have a number of district level resources, some of which we have the opportunity to evaluate, some that we do not, and some are it's not necessarily needed. So our network infrastructure, as you know, is if you will, that's our backbone. On that, we have a number of software packages that come to every employee. MS Office, these are productivity software pieces. Adobe Creative Suite. And also the very familiar enterprise-wide implementation of select resources like PeopleSoft that is warm and fuzzy in everyone's heart. But on top of that, from an instructional standpoint, a great deal of our software is managed, if you will, by Online Pathways and their group, who also include us in the evaluation of software packages like Canvas, which is our current learning management platform. Before that, Blackboard, and select software packages that run off of that platform, like used to be Turnitin, and now we have other types of anti-plagiarism and other type of documents to work with. But the point to be made here is that Online Pathways actually is the first driver for us. Every time that they're involved in a mix, it is a long time review and evaluation before we move toward adoption, and inclusion of all the campuses is definitely a part of it, as I'll allude to very quickly. And then the most important things are campus-initiated technology resources. Parties may be requesting things for discipline-specific software. Some things are faculty-initiated. Some actually are presented by virtue of being part of the textbook. It's a vendor site. And then there are instructional technology platforms where there is a great need for us to collectively review, analyze, and make sure that the type of platforms that's going to be introduced to us and our students are appropriate. In this case, there are requests to review potential instructional technology resources may be in response to changes in the instructional landscape. That could be innovation. It also could be faculty interest or student interest that may drive that request. So that takes us to how do we handle these requests? And we have technology evaluation teams. There are 3, but there probably are many more sub-teams. The Institutional Technology Council consists of a representative body of individuals who actually will bring issues to the fore for review, for demo, for an evaluation. We do that on all levels of technology and especially instructional ones. And also we have the faculty mentor who chairs the distance learning committee. And right now they have been inundated providing Canvas support for everyone, but they also take inputs from their respective constituents and bring it to the fore for an evaluation. And then of course, there's the department level expertise evaluations. What come to mind are areas where we have truly experts in music and graphic design, and they also know specifically what needs to be there to support instruction. So it may happen on different levels. But one thing that's been around for a long time is that there's been a technology technology request form that has often been available through the business office where individuals can make a request. And sometimes it's called a computer request form. And sometimes you'll see that parties may, the nature of the request will then shoot that item onto one of our review areas. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that for regular business in the normal time, non-pandemic, many of our labs have specialized software that normally is generated by faculty request, overseeing those labs to our technical services group, in which that is always handled. The software is sometimes purchased as an institution, sometimes as a department. But that is relatively routine up until now, where we're working virtually, where it becomes a new challenge. So let's say once something actually gets forwarded in that manner, the request computer services form may be it, a direct request to the ITC or a direct request to the faculty mentor. That takes us to looking at different how platforms are reviewed for functionality and suitability, and also to some extent really what's part of the City College way, what is appropriate for our students, and what is not necessarily something that would be at the front. And finally, we will then recommendations, pro or con, good or bad, will be then promulgated to our constituent groups through our committees going outward. And then the adoption is not complete at that point. It actually depends on the feedback as it is, if you will, presented to our various constituent groups for feedback and perhaps recommendations and other comments. If something clears all those hurdles, it pretty much then might be adopted if it is something that's also affordable. Now, all that being said, I'll be really on point with this. Some of what we used to do is something that has not necessarily been always written down or presented in a cogent fashion, because we have evolved as a campus. And now we have a new evolution in terms of a new norm. And that means we have a boatload of other types of software and hardware solutions, and yes, some platforms that are now under review. So we're going to have to test this process a little bit more. Just very briefly, we do have some vulnerability here. We are trying to make some adjustments, but even our distance learning committee, in addition to having a full-time faculty mentor, most of the members on that committee are part-time employees. And for all of our committees, we have to make sure that we have ample representation. And as people leave, we have to make sure that we replace them to the best of our ability. But long story short, things are not happening in a vacuum. When things are brought forward, like select packages or platforms that are somewhat controversial, at least from a technology standpoint, they are also vetted to see whether they even begin to meet the mark of what they have promised to do. Beyond that, we also have our educators, our instructors have certainly the opportunity to weigh on whether this would be appropriate for their area. And often the request comes first from our faculty as well. I was told I have very little time, so I'm going to move a little bit faster. In terms of OER, we also have a current and OER team. I have to share that. Forgive me, I'm going to stop sharing this item. Okay, and many of you are familiar with the fact that we have an OER presence, an open educational resources presence at the district level, but also at the local level. Our current local group, while valiant in their efforts, we have to reconstitute it because really we had a lot of effort from a few people, but we need to build the ranks. But we're not working in a vacuum. And for those, some of our faculty have actually contributed to our library of OER resources. I brought up this one site here from our online pathways group, where you can see that there's actually open textbooks. There's an OER repository. There's also miscellaneous OERs that one can look into. And we would hope that as parties start to decide how they're going to get involved, that you also can see what's already there. So there's an open textbook library, OpenStax, many other items here easily found at the Online Pathways website. I would be also remiss if I didn't mention that we have a vulnerability in items like OER, and also frankly, trying to have textbooks available for students. And that is that we just really need parties to participate more. Of course, we have an obligation to turn in your textbooks request on time, but imagine how that gets further exacerbated if there's not a knowledge of whether you're going to use a established textbook or something that is OER. So a lot of communication is necessary, and our group is to be constituting so that hopefully we can advance that even further. And if there are any questions, if time permits, if Ricky permits time, I'm glad to try to answer them.
We always want to be able to have questions, when we have a presentation like this. And if I could, before I open it up to questions, the reason why we're having this discussion is that since we're operating remotely, virtually, folks have the tendency to want to try some software. There's a lot of free software floating around out there. And we want to make sure we stay true to our college's process before we bring in software that may not be supported, that may cause further damage or trauma during a pandemic. Any questions or comments for Robbie?
Ricky, I have a question. It's Tilly. Thank you, Robbie. And actually, Ricky just addressed one of the questions I was going to ask about COVID and what gets snuck in around behind the door, and we're not sure. And then if you could just maybe expand a little bit about the vetting process, if you can. And the other part was, I saw that we had faculty represented on the committees. You mentioned most likely they're adjuncts. So does it go back at all and be shared with Academic Senate, or it's those individuals that need to take it back to the Academic Senate?
I think also some parties actually have kind of, in a sense, left us as well. So the reality check is that we probably will make a new request to Academic Senate for a number of parties. And while we want to invite everyone, we hope that we can get parties who are also full-time faculty as well to be on it. It just helps for overall continuity. Some great work took place, but we also have to build some degree of enthusiasm to get more people on board with online educational resources.
Yeah, so there's the committee form that you can fill out for the call for faculty. And that's definitely something we're trying to do. Well, we've been trying to do since as long as I've been on Senate, is just try to get an accurate account of faculty that are serving on committees and make sure that we have those terms. And then, yeah, the hope is that the faculty members on the committee do relay the information back to Senate, because they are faculty representatives and Senate representatives. So we're working on all of that. Thanks for mentioning that, Tilly.
Please go ahead.
Oh, sorry. This is Jocelyn. Dean Ewell, I have a question, and I'm going to ask Dr. Parker to also support me in my question. Dr. Parker came to SPA meeting, and there was a question raised about student access to the labs. in the LRC and the special program software. So how does students still receive access to certain programs they may need for software and technology?
Great question. I can't tell you I have a solid answer. There's some software that we are reviewing that actually comes with some upside and some downside. So this is actually part of this process. There are a number of things that came from the state as options for us to look into with different vendors. Since then, there's some other vendors that have come to light. The difficult thing is having something that's not too intrusive in the student's home environment, and also can assure parties that the functionality is there. I don't want to speak for our faculty who are in the sciences, but they have actually been working on a creative workaround on how to still provide a pseudo-live experience to their students. But this is definitely a work in progress. If there was a thought that we are going to have maybe open up our labs so students can come on board while our campus is closed, that I can pretty much say I doubt that that's going to happen. There may be some hard to convert courses where that would be something that would have been vetted highly down the road to see if parties can come in on a limited basis. But as far as just open labs where students can just come, I think we have to put our emphasis on trying to find a virtual alternative.
Yeah, and I would add, thank you, Robbie, that was spot on. And I would add, Jocelyn, that Robbie's presentation is really pointed at faculty and employees and the process in which we implement technology on campus for employees. I also acknowledge that there is a huge concern for students to have access to technology. There is a digital divide, folks, and we acknowledge that our students are greatly impacted by not being able to have access to Wi-Fi or our labs. We did the best we could under the circumstances with getting laptops in the hands of those students who may need them when and where those were available, and opening up a Wi-Fi lot, which I have to say is not used very much. I also have to acknowledge, Jocelyn, just because I'm inferring some of the things that I heard you say, we should be aware, folks, that San Diego State rushed to open and 700 people contracted COVID. And so I have no intention of opening our spaces to people because we don't have the financial resources to ensure the health and safety of those individuals in those spaces. What I am happy to say is that this group and others brought to my attention the desire to push forward on the .edu email addresses, which would afford our students access to certain technologies. We are pressing forward with that, and I hope to have an update in the coming weeks in terms of where we are with that. This is a pandemic. This is a very unfortunate matter, and I feel for every one of the students who's negatively impacted because they can't use our labs, they can't use our computers, they can't access our resources. But I'm absolutely clear that we are taking people's health and safety as the #1 priority before we start letting anyone back into any of our spaces.
Thank you both for that information and that update. So if faculty do.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Sure. So as soon as Marco, as soon as Jocelyn is done, we'll get to you. Go ahead, Jocelyn.
So if faculty does institute a new software program, it will be in mind what students would have access to that software and program, correct?
If it's an instructional program that's intended to be used like it would be in a classroom, and now a virtual classroom, that is absolutely true. But some things are platforms and some things are actual specific programs for a discipline. And so I guess rather than make a generalization, I can tell you firsthand that our faculty are doing everything possible to try to make the conversion to be online and to provide a quality product. One of the things that's a difference now for us, because we weren't here before, is that we also have to realize that before we come up with any solution, we also have to give our students an idea of what's the minimum technical requirements that they need to have for the resource they're working with, and whether that's provided by us or by them. So this is a little bit of a tag team and a team effort. But if I understood your question, the faculty are working actually with their students in mind and hoping that they can come up with the best solutions that provides that everyone who's enrolled actually has an equitable opportunity to participate.
I want to say thank you, Dr. Shabazz and Dean Yu. Yes, that answers my question, and I hope I presented it well on behalf of SPA's concern.
No, you presented it well, Jocelyn, on behalf of all of our concerns. There is a digital divide, and we absolutely know that there are students there's employees negatively impacted by this digital divide that we're doing our very best to address with the available resources that we have access to. Marco.
Yes, I just wanted to ask, I understand that the circumstances are and changing, and the information is quite limited concerning the resolution of this whole issue with the coronavirus, but more or less to have an idea. You mentioned that until it's not safe, you wouldn't open up the classes and labs for students and for faculty members. So with that would be for this fall semester, but for spring, do you guys have anything in?
Yes, Marco. So we and Caesar, we probably should get an email out to students if we haven't done so. But an email went out to the campus, I think last Monday from me, and the chancellor followed that up with an email that I do know was broadcasted throughout the district on Tuesday, announcing that intersession and spring would be primarily remote and online. Now, the thing, Marco, that I will share, and I'll work with Aaron to come to the student government. Denise, if we can work with Aaron to get me scheduled to go to a student government meeting if I haven't done so. Marco, this is a virus, and it's an airborne virus. And we're using science to determine what we should do. So all of the available science says that people should not assemble in large groups. When you think of an airborne virus in a classroom and the way our air conditioning systems work, it's not ideal for you to be in a classroom. And the lack of resources to clean person contracted COVID because we rushed back to open. And I know I may have cut off, my internet's a little unstable because I've got an 11-year-old and a 17-year-old that are being homeschooled. So I apologize. I'm not sure where I cut off.
Oh, but I understood what you're talking about, limited amount of resources and the transmission of this virus. I do
Marco, there's one other piece that if I could, actually two other pieces. One, the county health administrator has to even open it up for us to be able to open, which they have not. And the state health administrator has to do that, right? So there's some, in addition to me or the chancellor or the college making that decision, there's also some CDC guidelines, some state guidelines, and some county guidelines.
Understood. Thank you. You mentioned something also concerning labs. I know that it might not be maybe the same level of educational value to do labs online, but I do have experience with that. I know it's definitely a possibility for labs like regarding maybe chemistry or biology.
Absolutely, Tilly.
So thank you, Mark. That's a great question, and we recognize that. I do want to do a shout out to our faculty who have found ways of getting kits to our students in chemistry to safely do that, because it was really difficult. People come up with the ideas they want to be on here, and then they think our facilities are going to come every day behind them, clean up behind, and we don't have those kind of resources, first of all, and the safety is a big issue for us. But we have come up with great plans of having those kids come with them at home. We're making a concerted effort for spring to try and bring microbiology to having some hands-on components. But we're also wanting to maintain the integrity and the rigor of the program with that. So we're seeking using some of the funds, as what we talked about today, of what kind of kits can we help purchase for the students in that effort. While they may not be able to come on campus, what can we do to help that cost? So I know I hear you, but at the same time, we're trying to meet like halfway in between. We do have our AIR program, like our HVAC program, our essential programs that are stated by the State Chancellor's Office. Those programs will be the first levels that are coming back, and that's what we're working with. And they have labs. Not all day, not a ton of people. It's very restricted. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you
Yeah,
very much.
and I'm following some of the chat on YouTube, and I'm going to address two things before we go on to Dr. Murray, because it is important. We do have a number of people who are watching on YouTube, and thank you for everyone who is watching on YouTube as we seek to try to get information in the hands of our campus. Dr. Pesce asked a question, and shout out to our librarians. They're doing a wonderful job. I saw an email, I think just the other day, it may have been this morning, that talked about being able to drop off books and how they're going to do that. The entire library staff have done an amazing job throughout this pandemic, helping with the laptop giveaways and all of the giveaways for that matter. So thank you to Robbie and his entire team for the work that you all have been doing. If you need a list of software that's available, the best person to go to is your supervisor. If you're a student and you're listening to this and you want to know a list of available software, you can email or track down Robbie Ewell. Robbie Ewell and his team, along with Sean Ryan and Eric and Majda, do a wonderful and our district support staff do a wonderful job of linking folks with technology. For those employees, later in the agenda, I'm going to share the form that you can use if you need technology. Now, let me say this form is for employees. It's not for students. We've given out our student information in terms of laptops through our Dean of Student Affairs, Marciano Perez. And so if there is a student on the line, or if you are a faculty member or staff member who would like to get a computer in the hands of a student, you can reach out to Dean Marciano Perez and or the programs that may be available. We are working with Denise Wisenhunt, our Vice President of Students, to get more computers in the hands of students. There was one other question about enrollment being up and FTES being down, and that is absolutely correct. Thank you, Sean, one of our great faculty members. What we're seeing is that our head count is up, but the number of full-time students is actually down. And that's a trend that's been in place at City College for some time. And I'm having conversations with our vice presidents about ensuring that our instructional program is reflective of the fact that the majority of our students are part-time. And that may be a tough conversation for some folks, but the reality is that most students, nearly 3/4 of them, are enrolled in, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Murray, like less than 6 units. And so that means that we really need to take a hard look at when we offer classes, how we offer classes, and how we're supporting part-time students, because that is the demographic that we serve at City College. And so the mention of reducing FTEF and FTES is real and is based on actuals, but it's also based on the state budget. None of us, let me be clear, none of us like canceling classes. And so what I'm saying to the chairs and to the deans is that the way to avoid canceling classes is to look how we're scheduling classes. So if we continue to do the great work we have done with scheduling classes, then that'll increase the likelihood that we don't have to cancel them. But this is a very real budget matter that none of us like being in, myself included. Any other comments for the good of the order before we move on to the next item on the agenda?
Yeah, this is Nadia. I just wanted to mention that I thank you for the presentation and for updating us on CARES. It's nice to get that update. And at the last chairs meeting, I mean, I would be remiss to say that there was a lot of confusion and frustration around the process. And I know that it's like changed and stuff, but people have like followed process, turned in forms, and are just waiting really to hear back to figure out where they are in it. So I don't know if there's any suggestions you have to speed that up, or for people to find out where they are, or what kind of the best process to follow for like follow up or anything like that, because there was just confusion all the way around just in terms of where are we with it in general. And, you know, it's just kind of hard to navigate.
Yeah, Nadia, I share in that frustration. And in fact, the vice president and I just got out of a meeting, and I want to be clear that I've told them to spend the money. And so with all the things that are going on, and they're doing a tremendous job, right? This is not a knock on our vice presidents. They are working 12, 14-hour days, 7 days a week. There's a portion, and I'm going to come to this, Nadia, in later on in the agenda. So if I could, I don't want to get ahead of myself because I do want to get to Dr. Murray's presentation. I'm going to jot that down, and I assure you I'm going to address it because there is an agenda item specifically for CARES. But quickly, the vice presidents, I'm getting weekly updates on the amount of money that is being spent, because that's how important it is for me to get the money in the hands of our faculty, our classified, and our students, because I do not want to get into November and hear faculty and classified folks say they don't have the things they need in order to help support our students.
Thank you.
I believe, Dr. Murray, you are up next with an update on our work around committees.
Yes. And I am here on behalf of our committee review project work group with, excuse me, a brief update. We presented to the college at large several times at the end of the spring semester about the plan that we had developed to reorganize our college committee structure. And over the summer, we have been meeting as a work group to start to lay out how we're going to take that plan and start to operationalize it. So I want to share with you how we're going to move forward on the particular task of developing charges for the city hubs in that new structure that we had proposed. So this is something that, sorry, getting pages that won't cooperate. This is the structure that we brought to the college last spring and generally received positive feedback on it, but this was just kind of the very preliminary step. This was a concept. Now we're trying to take this concept and flesh it out. So the first thing that we did was draft some descriptions of what we envisioned based on all the input we've received so far would be occurring within each of these hubs. Now what we want to do is reach out and engage with our existing committee structure. The committees, the councils, the constituency groups that make up our current structure, and have dialogue with them about what the charge for each of these hubs should look like. Do we have the definition correct? Have we missed anything? And how will those subgroups interact with these hubs that will then interact with College Council? So we have created, because the picture of committee membership is ever changing, we have created this timeline, and the first step is to ask folks to update a contact list, which is just a pretty straightforward Google spreadsheet. These are the groups that we have in our committee inventory. We have our best information as to who the current chair or contact is. We will be sending out this link to all those folks and asking them to verify that information and ask them to select which of those hubs they would see themselves aligning with as both a primary and a secondary source. Then our work group, which has about 9 members, I think. And I would say between the 9 of us, probably cover 60 to 75% of those existing committees already. But we will be going out in 1s and 2s to ask to be on the agenda of different groups for this dialogue. In some cases, we might have to set up a separate meeting. That's just a coordinating and scheduling task that we're going to have to tackle. I know those can be the biggest headache to moving something forward, but we want to get over this hump and make sure that everybody has the opportunity to participate. So we're going to be reaching out once we have the correct contact information to schedule those conversations for each of the hub areas in October and November. That will get us to the point where we can have draft charges to share in December and then start the process of finalizing what this will look like. Our goal is that by the middle of the spring semester, we will have the new structure in place and be ready to staff it so that we will start fall 2021 with everybody understanding where their new assignments are or have their current assignments ratified. And we won't need the first month of the semester to update rosters, go through the appointment process with constituency groups to fill vacancies and sort out who's supposed to be where. That will also set us up to do some of the planning at the end of the spring semester with College Council and the hub leaders and the constituency group leaders that we had discussed when we shared this in the retreat. So that's where we're headed. We will be circulating the link to this contact form so that people can go in and enter their own information and get that updated. And then expect to hear a request from a representative from our work group to get on the agenda to start to have this conversation. We're going to be developing some kind of criteria so that we are approaching this in a similar way and ending up with hub charges that have a consistent shape, because consistency is one of the things that we want to bring to our committee process. Once we have those things in place, then we'll have the information we need to finish developing the other two strands that we are working on. One is creating a toolkit for committee work and then providing the professional development that goes along with that. And then the second is a strand to promote increased student engagement in our governance processes and identifying how and where that will work. So Nadia, Tilly, Sean, anybody else from our work group? Anything else you want to add? All right, any questions from College Council?
Sorry, Susan, I was just going to say, I really look forward to this process as many other people. So maybe we can find just a few meetings that we've been in. I can't wait to get to the end.
Yes. I think, there is going to be a little bit of an extra push this year, which is challenging given our remote circumstances and other things, where for a little while we will be creating some additional meetings. But once we get past that and can get the new structure operational, I think everyone so far has felt like this will be something that is more focused and more effective in terms of the use of all of our collective time in governance. All right, that is our update for now. Thank you.
Great job, Susan.
Thank you, Susan. I apologize. I was trying to get up the other agenda items. I'm equally excited about the work and the hubs that are going to be coming out of this discussion on campus, and hopefully decreasing the 40+ committees that Denise Wisenhunt sits on so that she can have more time to do her work besides being in committee meetings. But in all fairness, many of us are sitting on these different committees, and there seems to be a lot of overlap. And so I'm looking forward to aligning these things so that we can work more productive, efficiently versus quantity, more of a quality discussion in these spaces. Let me now share the agenda. There's got to be a better way to share things on Zoom, particularly when you're hopping between different things. I'm going to go back to Nadia's point, and again stress that if there are faculty, classified supervisors, managers who has been assigned resources in the CARES Act, that you reach out to your respective vice president. So, and please, let me just go on record as saying, flood them with emails, bug them until they get you what it is that you've either been promised or requested, or an answer saying that we can't get you what you requested. You deserve an answer. They want to give you an answer. There are essentially 3 pots of money. We talked already about the 1.4 or so that we provided to students. I'm going to talk first about the 3rd pot and then come back to the 2nd pot. And so the 3rd is called a block grant. This is coming from the federal government. These monies have to be expended by December of this year. We voted on this amount at a prior college council. It's showing here, if I'm doing this right, you should see the COVID block grant, $324,000. Do you all see that? Okay, getting some nodded heads. So we've got $50,000 for athletic counseling, $50,000 for the health center, even though it says mental health. This is for the health center to support Dottie, our students getting flu shots, and other work that's going on. We are still providing mental health services, folks. We are still providing health services. So we allocated $50,000 to the health center side to go along with a prior allocation that you'll see when I share the institutional cares for mental health. Spoke today to Dr. Parker, and he graciously said that the $30,000 we assigned for the VPA's office is not going to be necessary given the restriction of this particular dollar amount, that it has to be spent by December. By the time they hire someone and got them access, it may not be conducive. And so what we elected to do is reallocate that $30,000 for the VPA-C to DSPS. And so now the DSPS, and I hope we all can agree that during this pandemic and virtual and working remotely, that there's heightened attention to the learning styles of our abled students who are in our DSPS program. And so that number is going to go up to 60,000, 30,000 for OER, 30,000 for student workers, and $100,000 for tutoring. And what I've asked Tilly to do with tutoring, because I am concerned that that $100,000 for tutoring needs to be spent by December. I've asked Tilly to bring back a plan for the tutoring centers as to how they're going to expend that $100,000. And if they even foresee having a challenge, I would like to partner embedded tutoring into athletics. Smile, Aaron. Embedded tutoring into athletics, embedded tutoring into Umoja Puente, embedded tutoring into Hubu. That's given if the tutoring has a challenge with spending this $100,000 between now and December. That may that may be a tad bit much for them to spend, because this money has to be in new areas, not things we already had budgeted, right? That's the caveat or the small print of these resources, is that it must go to something that was not budgeted prior. Any questions about this 324? This 324, Dr. Parker, I believe is here. It arrived last week, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct.
So for everyone listening, for everyone on YouTube Live, this money is live and ready to be spent, and it must be spent by December. This is over and above the next allocation that I'm going to go over, of which is a $502,000 from the state. This is Block Fund Cares COVID, not to be confused with the institutional that I'm going to go over next. So there's an additional $502,000 that the vice presidents are working with their respective teams to allocate. I know that we have chemistry kits that have been requested to the tune of about 200,000. We know that lab courses are hard to convert. All of these funds are meant to go to COVID related matters. And so first, these funds are going to hard to convert things, DSPS, OER, mental health. We know that athletics was impacted because all of the sports now are going to happen in the spring. This 500 has the same bureaucracy that it's got to go to something that is COVID related. These monies have not yet arrived, and there is some level of concern as to whether they're going to actually come. But I have asked the vice presidents to work with their respective areas to bring forth a needs assessment for these funds. Any questions about the $502,000? Hearing none, I'm going to now share really the item that Nadia was speaking of, and this is the one that I have the most focus on. Give me 1 second here. You should be able to toggle between documents without having to make sure that those documents are not. Now I've got to. There it is. So this is the institutional cares amount, and where the dollars were, where and how the dollars were allocated. And this is the amount ultimately, Nadia, that you were talking about. And this is, I am officially going to get a weekly update on this money to ensure that it is spent. So there was $60,000 spent for online success training for faculty. That pretty much took place. I think people are still being paid out of that money there. And I got to move the little, there's $450,000 for instruction. And you see how that money is allocated. And so, yes, if there are faculty members out there that need these items, your vice president of instruction has $450,000 allocated to spend the money in these areas. And I'm now officially getting weekly updates, and they have been instructed, begged to spend this money. There is money set aside, Jocelyn and Sean, for all other employees who may need laptops, docking stations, web cameras. Now, again, I'm going to go over the form too. This does not mean we're going to provide every single person with a brand new laptop or computer. This means if you don't have one, or the one that you have is not operational, then we absolutely are going to make sure you have one. And it may not be new, it may be a repurposed one, but there are funds set aside to do that. $50,000 for NetLab, and then another $450,000, I'm just going to say, for student services to be spent in these areas. There's the $50,000 for mental health that I talked about earlier, $10,000 for HUBU, $5,000 for City Women Rock, $30,000 for student workers, and then a set aside an amount of $200,000+ for PPE and facilities, so that when we do return, people return safely. And to include supporting the maintenance of the sustainable agriculture program, because we have nearly an acre farm on campus that needs to be tended to, even though someone is not there. Are there any questions about this as I toggle between the forms? Any questions about that?
I'm sorry to talk again, just for clarity then. Chairs should contact Tilly?
The deans first.
They're deans first. So but if the forms have been turned in and they've been working with deans and are still kind of waiting for an update, go through the dean again, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, if I may, Robbie Ewell is with us today, and he's actually helps with the technology. If there is a way, I heard Nadia say earlier, is there somehow a way that I can check where I am on the list? Where is that? And I think sending all those emails back and forth is not the solution. I think the solution might be a process for us in that. I think that's what I'm hearing you ask, Nadia. So yeah, I know we've had this conversation
People were
briefly
asking in the meeting.
Yeah.
And before we shift to Robbie, let me also say this, because I'm probably stealing Robbie's thunder. No, let me let you go first, Robbie, and then I think I know what you're going to say. Go ahead, Robbie.
No, by all means, please go ahead.
Folks, there is a backlog of laptops. There's a backlog of web cameras, and there's a backlog of Wi-Fi hubs, because every college and K through 12 on the planet are trying to order these things right now. And so if it is something in that area, I can tell you I've checked a number of times, and even myself, I ordered 2 monitors for my home office back in April, and they just got delivered about a week ago. So there is a backlog of these things, and some of them are out of the control. Robbie, if you could work with Tilly, it would be good to get a campus email so that those people who have requested things that are back ordered, at least we could communicate to them. And then Robbie, please, I think Tilly was throwing the update to you.
Sure, and it's a very fair question. I won't get into the weeds, but parties should know that, say for Apple products, the backlog is now a month, 4 to 5 weeks out. For some things, we actually have gotten them in already, and we're getting ready for distribution. And laptops is one of those things where it's getting kind of contentious out there, where parties are trying to steal other people's orders. So there are things going on in the background that it kind of it makes it difficult for us to give an exact window, but you deserve an update, and I want to give you one that's going to be as precise as possible. I can give you an idea on the things that we know that are en route with, and everything that we've pursued so far, we have the guarantee of its delivery window, so that we aren't, waiting with our dollars encumbered somewhere. More to come, but we also have, for example, webcams. We got ahead of that group. We actually have webcams for everyone. And we have been distributing to parties not in the wholesale drive-by distribution mode, but a number of your colleagues have been picking up things that they needed specifically for their class, in which there was a sense of urgency. But we need to give people a general update, and also, particularly if it's on a particular type of item, to give you an updated timeline and when we expect it to come to campus. Coupled with the fact that sometimes not only does it have to get here, but if it's a computer or a device of that nature, we also have to prep it for use. So it's not an instantaneous thing. It arrives and it goes right out to someone the next day. It may take a day or two.
Yeah, and what we may do, because I'm following the YouTube, Caesar, if you could work to send an update to the campus, because there are these different pots of money and people are confused. Do I have this amount or do I have that amount? Because there's some areas that are funded in each one of the pots. And I apologize, folks, this is our federal government at work. We've got federal institutional CARES money, that's one pot. We've got federal block grant CARES money from the feds, that's the second pot. And then we've got federal block grant, state CARES money. That's the third pot. So we are operating off of 3 pots of money. I showed you the 324, which is the block grant money. I showed you the institutional 1.6 million. That's the institutional CARES money. And we have yet to fully allocate, other than $200,000 for chemistry kits, the entire $500,000 that is from the state block grant CARES money that I'm not 100% whether or not it's going to actually arrive. The federal CARES money is on site, spend it. The institutional CARES money is on site, spend it. And so if you have other needs that are not computer related because those are backlogged or back ordered, get in touch with your dean and have your dean bug the heck out of your vice president. Tilly, did we order Lori's printer? Scanner.
Yes.
The scanner has been ordered. I would personally like to know when that
It's
scanner
been
is here.
approved. It's been approved and I gave the information, so I'll follow up and ask.
I want to personally know when that scanner is delivered. And if there are other things, folks, I want to be clear that the vice president and I just had a discussion earlier today. I want, when and if possible, that when and if it's in our control, I want these things delivered before November. I don't want to go halfway through the semester and our great faculty, classified professionals, and supervisors and managers don't have the things that you all need to support our students. I am getting a weekly report on this 1.6 million and the $300,000 to see where we are. And I assure you, I will bug the heck out of them. And they do not like being bugged by me. I am going to get these resources in the hands of the people who need them. And that's not to say that they weren't. That's to say that the funds are here and we're doing our very best to spend the money. Any other questions?
I do have a comment.
Yes.
One thing too, and Nadia, you may be aware that a number of faculty who did indicate initially that they did not need any particular technology because what they were working with from home was fine. As this pandemic extends and it drains parties' personal resources, sometimes their situation has changed. So I think it's fair to also acknowledge that there may be some new requests coming to the forefront. Some have already happened, quite frankly, where parties felt there was no need, but now there is a need. So this is a little bit of a moving target, but we are still trying to address, as I'm glad to know there's more funds here because our need is growing. And we're going to build to capacity to make sure we can support it.
Yeah, and with that said, I want to share the form that people use, and I want to go over this again. This form is for a technology-related CARES need. This is the form that we created. Thank you, Roxanne. Thank you to the vice presidents, to try to capture if there's somebody out there who doesn't have a computer, doesn't have access to Wi-Fi. Now, this form is to be used for something CARES related. This form is not to be used if you need some pencils or you need some paper. Your deans and your divisions still have a regular budget. We haven't reduced the budget for normal operational items. This form is not for normal operational items. This form is to request things that are COVID related. My laptop stopped working. I don't have Adobe Photoshop. And I need that to create flyers or whatever the case may be. That's what this form is for. Let me also say that the vice presidents, this money has been allocated to the division. So I mentioned that Tilly has access to 450 or so thousand. Denise has access to 430 or so thousand. There is no need to fill out this form for things that they already put a proposal in for their allocation to go toward. This form is trying to capture those people or individuals that we're not aware of that have needs.
Ricky, I want to add to that if I may. So
if Tilly or, yeah, please.
Just an example of if you were already on the list, the Excel list in instruction for technology, no need. But I just received 2 of these this weekend of people that, like what Dean Ewell just said, they didn't realize now they have the request. So they filled out the form and I'm moving that forward. So they were not originally on the Excel list. I'm just making an example.
Yeah, and let me also give another shout out and sincere appreciation for Roxanne, because Roxanne and Dean Ewell got together even before these funds came in and put in an order for laptops. So we've been giving people laptops, and I'm just not just students, but people, employees who need technology. We've been doing that from day one. And Robbie, on a daily or weekly basis, how would you say that works?
Well, we have a presence on campus at least twice a week, it looks like, with the primary purpose of either issuing out a replacement or a new laptop, or taking back a laptop that is run into a licensing activation issue. So I would say in terms of getting to most of our employees who had the immediate need, we've done that with existing stock. It has a time bomb on it. So it's a matter of us continuing to keep pushing and getting the newer product to as many people as we can.
And if I remember correctly, last discussion I had with you and the vice presidents, I authorized the purchase of 100 laptops.
Yes.
And so those have been ordered and they're en route?
They have been ordered. They are en route. A miracle was created to get it through. And we did special targeting to make sure that with our reseller, to make sure that no one can grab our shipment. So quite frankly, they should be arriving, we believe, at the end of this week, perhaps Monday at the latest.
Fabulous, fabulous. And again, we're also, from the beginning, kudos to the vice presidents, Roxanne, facilities. When people needed something out of their office, we allowed folks to do that following the protocol that I believe Dr. Parker even sent out today about how to access campus or seek support from Dr. Parker's area. And so we want to know, folks, if you have a need, and we'll do our very best to make sure that we can at least tell you where it is, if we can do it, if we can't do it, please let us know. Any other questions or comments? Denise, you're unmuted. Were you going to share something?
Well, I would just offer that is this money codified as like COVID related things? Is that what we're talking about? I'm getting different communication. So wanted some clarification on that. Is that COVID related?
Yes, hence the funding is CARES, which is a result of COVID. Help me understand the question or clarity needed.
No, that's it. I just want to know, like, within the scope of what, I mean, we're talking about resources, and I just want parties to be informed, like the context by which we are providing these things, if at some point we have to report.
Yeah, and thank you, Denise. And not if at some point we have to report. All of this money, these resources are coming with strings, folks. And the reporting is very specific to say these funds are supposed to go to COVID related matters. So this isn't I always wanted to have. This is, if I don't have this, this is how it's going to impact my class, my workshop, whatever the case may be. There is absolutely reporting connected to this funding, and it must be COVID related. Other questions, comments? So just to recap, shared the form. The form has been sent to every employee on the campus. If you didn't get it, reach out to Dr. Parker or your dean or your vice president. They'll make sure you get the form. Let us know if you have a need by communicating with your immediate supervisor and or your dean. I am going to be seeing a weekly report until this nearly 6 million is expended or encumbered. I am monitoring this actively because I want to ensure, as your vice presidents do, that these resources get in the hands of the people who need it. And so we're doing our very best. We will come back to you with a formal approval process. When we have greater detail about the 500,000, that is the third bucket, if you will, allocation, that is the state block grant CARES funds. If you have a need for something, we heard from the chemistry folks, if you have a need from it, Denise had a great idea. Denise, you want to share just real quick your idea about the online assistant?
Oh yeah, but we have a resource for students. Just as we have IT issues, students are calling, they're asking for IT support, have nowhere to call. People have never used a computer in years. We're having them use computers. We need some support.
So Denise and her team are researching a software web-based support where students can go if they have questions about IT related things, because that's not necessarily what Robbie and his team does, although they help the very best that they can. They have their hands full just keeping our employees up to speed in terms of technology. So I thought that was a wonderful idea that Denise had come up with, as well as the chemistry kits, since we are likely to not have labs in person on site. Other questions? Hearing none, let me bring back up the agenda. I think we are just, yes, that was the last agenda item other than a round table. Are there updates for the good of the order?
This is Sean. I have nothing to update.
Thanks, Sean. Good to see you. Anyone have any updates? Hearing none, I want to thank you. Really enjoyed the discussion. You know, we do have resources available. Marco, did you have anything you wanted to chime in?
Well, I just wanted to give you a little bit of update from ASG as well, from what we get from the students, concerns that they voice. But you've already talked about most of the things. Just one last thing that you guys didn't really touch upon, and it's mental health. I get constantly there's obviously, I understand the situation with the pandemic, and there's a lot of things that we cannot do, and there's a lot of other things that we can do, but generally there's seeing a lot of stress and a lot of mental issues related, I guess, to maybe lack of social contact and you know, with the stressors and the economy, and maybe other factors as well that are indirectly or directly related to pandemic. But that's just something I wanted to bring up because I think it's equally important, you know, beyond financial aspects and academic and directly academic aspects. I think mental health is a huge problem that goes underreported, in part because a lot of students don't come up and voice their problems as well.
Yeah, Marco. And before I turn it over to Denise, let me just acknowledge that you're absolutely right. And I am so proud of Leslie Easton and our mental health program. We have, without a doubt, and I've worked at 5 different colleges, I've traveled the country. We have, without a doubt, the best mental health program that I've ever seen. And we did put $50,000 into CARES, but let me turn over of CARES into mental health. And I'm committed when or if the second stimulus comes out to putting more resources into mental health for the very reason you point out, Marco. But let me turn it over to Denise to conclude with this point in terms of what mental health is doing. She updated me earlier, and I'm very excited about what is happening with mental health.
You are spot on, Marco, that, you know, this is a tough space for students to be in, as well as the entire campus community. And our mental health team is one of the best in the country. And the way in which they do that, I'm going to put a hyperlink to some of our mental health resources that we offer. They're on the website. And also there's a link to the calendar for the college, which every week there are special workshops for general students and special interest students. Students might have from a particular community that needs support, and they're also in the classroom. And we always encourage, and this is an opportunity to do just that, to encourage faculty to invite our mental health resources into the classroom. So there are a lot of ways, and mental health has not gone away. In fact, we were the first college in our district to do telehealth. So I don't know if you're familiar with telehealth, but it's just like you and I talking right now. And it's basically that opportunity to just come and process with someone. And it is by appointment. They have virtual office hours. We sent out a resource link to all of our students about some of the support resources on our campus. I think our student resource fair is going on about right now, but there are so many different resources on campus. And I'm going to put the general link on the website. Actually, it's already up. And please, encourage students, and we will come and talk to the ASG because we know that you are the voices of students to come and share that message. But there are events on our calendar. We have special workshops. We just launched under the leadership of Leslie Easton and Student Health. We just launched some special efforts for Black students during the space that we're in. We just have like a myriad of resources, and we're doing some things where we're trying to engage and be intrusive, like come into people's classes. Because I don't know about you, Marco, people don't always say it, right? They need people to be engaged, and we always invite that. And in your Canvas shells for your class, there's a link to student resources. In many of your classes, you may find that. We're encouraging people to do that. That has a resource to student mental health on campus. But thanks, that's an excellent question. You've been killing it today, Marco, with your questions. You've done a great job. So thank you for the opportunity to say that.
And this is why I'm so adamant about students being in these meetings. Marco, you made my day just seeing your face and having your presence. Thank you for engaging in this process that we call College Council. Folks, we've run a little over, but I've enjoyed the dialogue today. Please share this information back with your constituency groups. For those of you on YouTube Live, for those of you on College Council, please take these matters that we voted on, that we've discussed, and these resources that are available back to your colleagues so that they can be aware that there are resources to help us during this pandemic. Everybody be well, be safe, and I'll see you all at the next Zoom meeting. Take care.
Bye. Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.
And thanks for your words.
Good job.